Pekin High School is a school attended only by vampires. At first glance, it doesn't seem any different from normal schools. But everyone knows that there should be no humans in this school. It's very dangerous for ordinary people. For lunch, the students of this school were given pig's blood. Of course, the students wanted to taste human blood, but it was forbidden. Sarah ran into the classroom and loudly announced that there was a fight in the hallway. "You bastard, messing with me! Shouldn't you apologize and somehow make up for ruining other people's lunch?" Sullivan grabbed Jacob by the scruff of his neck and began shaking him like a pear. "But that was because you were running down the hallway without looking around," Jacob objected. "So it's all my fault? You're going to blame other people to the last? Let's see what flavor of blood we're going to get tonight," shouted Sullivan and swung his fist, intending to hit Jacob. "Get out of my way," Lillian said in a calm, quiet voice. "That's the vampire queen!" the students exclaimed and hurriedly retreated. The students of Pekin High School were afraid of Lillian Berge. There were some rather frightening rumors about the girl. It was said that she had managed to defeat the exorcists by a ratio of 666 to 1. She was considered a high-level vampire. Since the girl had bright red eyes and white hair, she was considered a pure-blood vampire. "Queen, it seems you didn't receive today's blood packet. If you don't mind, please take my blood packet," Tiffany whispered. With a sharp movement, Lillian knocked the blood packet out of the girl's hands. She announced in a loud voice that she would not drink fake blood. "You know, and I've never once seen her drink blood from the bag. I heard that she hunts people after school. I wonder if that's true. I mean, according to the law, we're not allowed to drink human blood. The exorcists are watching out for it." The classmates whispered. "And why did everyone start thinking I was the vampire queen? It's not like I wanted to be. What a load of crap. And why is everyone afraid of me? It's the other way around. They're 100 times scarier than me, a normal human," screamed Lillian, sitting in the toilet stall. "Okay, I'll sit here. No one will touch me in this place." Lillian pulled out a stashed juice pouch from her breast pocket. Lillian was unlucky. She happened to be the only person who attended Pekin High School. How could a person get in here? Simple. There was a mistake. When Lillian found out that she would be attending high school with the vampires, she was furious. The girl couldn't believe what she heard for a long time. You see, there was one little mistake in the application process. It turned out that the human school wasn't called Pekin, but Beacon. To be honest, that's a pretty common mistake, said the girl's secretary into the phone and chuckled embarrassedly. "But you yourself know very well that this is an unusual school. This school is specifically for vampires. What will happen if tomorrow at the entrance ceremony they find out I'm an ordinary human?" Lillian was indignant. "Don't get me wrong, but I've only been working here for a short time, so this situation is new to me as well. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to help you. If you want to, you can transfer to another school after a while," said the secretary and hung up the phone. "Mom, Dad, I'm in big trouble," shouted Lillian, looking into her parents' room. The room was empty. On the table, the girl found a note. It turned out that early in the morning, her parents had gone on vacation to Hawaii for a few days. "What negligent parents! How dare they go on vacation at such a crucial time for me?" Lillian was indignant. Since Lillian had no other choice, she had to prepare for the entrance ceremony. The girl decided to become like a vampire. Unfortunately, Lillian didn't take into account that with her white hair and red eyes, she would stand out a lot. "It's okay. I should only have to suffer for a year and I can transfer to another school. After that, those horrible bathroom lunches and disguising myself as a vampire will be over," Lillian exclaimed. "So you're not the pure-blood vampire everyone talks about? You're actually a regular human? I never would have thought that a vampire queen was a human specimen," said the red-haired guy. He leaned over the stall wall and looked at the girl with a smile on his face. "Tell me, how did you get into this school?" the red-haired guy asked Lillian. The girl had to tell him that there was a wrong application. She got into this school by mistake. What about that story about the defeated exorcists? The boy asked. I just got interrogated by an exorcist once. I was misunderstood, explained Lillian. Well, here I am. I'm going to die right here and now. I never expected to meet my death so quickly, and how well it started out. For the sake of high school, I even had to give up sports. I dreamed of enjoying high school life. Lillian thought sadly. Dear vampire, I will do anything you say. Just please don't tell anyone about me, exclaimed Lillian, bowing to the ground. She had never kneeled before anyone, but there was no other choice. It was necessary to beg for salvation. Will you do anything? Sounds reassuring. With an ominous twinkle in his eyes, the guy said, You know, and I just needed someone like you. I don't even know how someone like me can help you, Lillian said fearfully. It became clear to her that the guy was up to something very bad. If she started helping him, she might get into trouble. Don't worry, I'll definitely need you, I'm sure of it. And anyway, you just don't have any other choice. With a cheerful grin, the guy said. Suddenly, Lillian coughed loudly. She asked the red-haired guy to escort her to the infirmary. The girl was afraid he was plotting to kill her, so she decided to trick him. You think I'm going to go along with this? I'm not falling for that shit, so stop pretending, exclaimed the guy. Lillian turned dramatically pale and rolled her eyes. Hey, come on, come to your senses. It's too soon for you to see your grandmother. The guy was afraid that Lillian was about to faint, so he began to shake her vigorously by the shoulders. Damn, are all humans so weak? Okay, I'll take you to the infirmary. Try to straighten up. The red-haired guy helped Lillian up off the floor and took her to the nurse's station with slow steps. Go blind, asshole! Lillian shined the flashlight into the red-haired guy's eyes. He went blind for a moment and lost sight of the girl. Lillian quickly jumped out of the restroom and ran to the teacher's lounge. She needed to call someone for help. Teacher, help me! Shouted Lillian, bursting into the teacher's lounge. The teachers were just having lunch. They were barely jelly from the pig's blood. The teachers offered the girl a piece. So you're eating? Then I'll come a little later. Enjoy your meal. Smiling happily, Lillian said. She scolded herself for being stupid. If this school is for vampires, then clearly the teachers here are vampires too. What am I supposed to do now? How do I go to school? I'm sure that red-haired vampire will tell everyone that I'm a normal human. Okay, I need to calm down and get a grip. They call me Vampire Queen. I have to live up to that. Lillian decided to herself. When the girl entered the classroom, there was a sepulchral silence. The students always fell silent as soon as she was near them. Without looking around, absorbed in her thoughts, Lillian sat down at her desk. I see you're feeling better. Lillian heard a familiar voice beside her. What are you doing here? The girl exclaimed, surprised, noticing the red-haired boy she knew next to her. I myself just found out now that you and I are desk mates. I missed a few classes, so I didn't get to know you sooner, explained Lillian to her desk mate. That's Chadwick Gabe. Is he really going to sit with the queen now? Everyone knows he's the ultimate bully. The students whispered excitedly. Lillian had purposely sat at this desk since it was at the back of the classroom, away from everyone. She didn't want any neighbors. I want to warn you that a little later you're going to walk with me somewhere, said Chadwick to the girl. His look didn't bode well. So you thought I would demand your blood? Asked Chadwick. The girl reminded him that he himself had said he needed a human. Are you mocking me now? When did I ever ask for your blood? Resented Chadwick. Well, if you don't want my blood, then what do you want from me? Asked Lillian. You see that warehouse over there? I need to get the key the headmaster hid there. Chadwick pointed his finger at the unremarkable building. The girl wondered why he couldn't get that key himself. Did you really enter the school knowing nothing? The previous principal, a 100-year-old geezer, used to kill vampires. He made it so you can't get into this barn that easily. There are tons of scary traps and strong barriers inside. Chadwick explained. On top of that, this warehouse is guarded by an ancient demon. He's pretty hard to defeat. You didn't tell me you'd have to go to such a dangerous place, Lillian exclaimed. She hadn't planned to fight an ancient demon. She had no experience with demons at all. You don't worry too much about it. We'll just get the key, and then we'll go straight back afterward. Chadwick pulled a lockpick from his pocket and picked the lock of the barn. So, shall we go? Chadwick asked and stepped into the barn. Looks like this shed hasn't been used in a while. There are a lot of dusty items in here, said Lillian, looking around. Chadwick asked the girl not to fall for the deception. Since this shed belonged to an exorcist, it was literally full of traps. Lillian accidentally stepped on a head of garlic. Lifting her head up, the girl saw a large yellow ball. It was tied to the ceiling with thin threads. Suddenly, the balloon opened and garlic sprinkled on the floor. Garlic? Why so much of it? Is this some kind of prank? Lillian wondered. A strong aroma of garlic filled the room. The girl noticed that Chadwick swayed and began to slowly settle to the floor. Lillian picked him up so he wouldn't accidentally hit himself as he fell. Lillian, please do me a favor, asked the girl Chadwick. Once again, she figured he would ask to drink her blood. The girl really wanted to push the guy away from her and as far away from her as possible. Suddenly, Chadwick sneezed loudly and turned into a bat. He asked the girl to get all the garlic out of the warehouse. The garlic was making his eyes water. What's going on? Why are you suddenly such a cute bat? Asked Lillian. It was the first time she had ever seen a vampire change his appearance. Do you even hear what I'm saying to you? Chadwick squeaked in a nasty voice. I don't understand humans after all, and I can't stay in this body. I won't be able to find the key in this form. Lillian pulled her hands toward Chadwick. The girl had a weakness. She couldn't hold back when she saw the animal in front of her. Whenever Lillian came in contact with something cute, her hands would start to shake with excitement. The girl was literally no longer in control of herself. Okay, I need to stop. It's not a cute, fluffy creature in front of me. It's an evil vampire. But I really want to pet it. Just a little bit. The girl thought to herself. Unable to hold back, Lillian grabbed Chadwick and pressed him against her cheek. The bat was even softer than the stray cats from the neighborhood. Enraged, Chadwick bit Lillian's finger. In the same second, Chadwick took on human form again. I told you not to touch me, Chadwick muttered. Lillian gathered up all the garlic and carried it outside the barn. Are you sure there are any traps and demons in this building? We've only seen a ball containing garlic so far, said Lillian. She expected to see more scary and intimidating traps. Suddenly, the girl saw a cross. It was adorned with a human skull. Lillian cried out fearfully. Lowering her eyes a little lower, the girl noticed a human skeleton. As you've already guessed, I can't touch this skull since it's hung on the cross. But it will be easy for you. You need to put your hand in its mouth and answer an ancient riddle it will ask you. Narrated Chadwick. The girl reached out and carefully put her hand into the skull's open mouth. Suddenly, the eye sockets of the skull glowed with a yellow light. A terrifying voice sounded. Lillian gave a frightened squeal. I can't understand why you're so frightened. Has there really come a law that forbids skulls from talking? The skull said in a surprised voice. By the way, you look very weak. Why did you come to a place like this? Did your boyfriend really ask you to do this? If so, he's a real trash. And just what do you see in him? Skull asked. Chadwick asked him not to be distracted, but to ask a question. How about you hit that trash and pay attention to me? Trust me, I used to be very popular with the girls. How do you like my offer? Skull asked Lillian. You don't have to answer my question, though. You won't be able to solve my riddle anyway. I'm sure we'll be with you forever until you rot away completely. Now for the riddle. Listen to the conversation between John and Anna and tell me what their relationship is like. Anna thanks John for the party last night. She is glad he invited her. John replies to her that his heart flutters. He likes Anna. Anna reminds John that he is married and his wife is her best friend. John accuses the girl of not loving him. He offers to drop everything and run away together. Answer me what their relationship is. Lillian didn't know what to answer because the story about John and Anna sounded in English. Unfortunately, foreign languages were extremely difficult for the girl. My answer is this. These people have a doctor-patient relationship. After a little thought, Lillian exclaimed, Wrong! The answer is forbidden love. Congratulations, you will now stay with me forever, joyfully exclaimed the skull. Lillian tried to release her hand, but the skull only clenched its teeth harder. With a jerk of her hand, Lillian pulled the skull away from the cross. Suddenly, an alarm sounded, and a mechanical voice announced that a puzzle piece had been lost. We will now troubleshoot the problem to restore security, announced the voice. A pop was heard, and the room was suddenly filled with something white and fluffy. When Lillian opened her eyes, she noticed she was lying on a fluffy white carpet. I see you are quite surprised. You're so surprised you can't even get a word out. A joyful skull appeared in front of the girl's face. I was lucky to have this mat on the floor. Thanks to it, I didn't bruise myself. The only thing is, I'm still not sure where Chadwick went. Lillian muttered, Are you talking about that rough vampire now? I think you crushed him, said the skull. Lowering her eyes, the girl realized she was sitting on top of Chadwick. Startled, she dropped the skull from her hands. God, well, why does something keep happening to you? You and I almost died just now, exclaimed Chadwick, rising from the floor. It's not all my fault this time. I didn't think it would be this serious. In an annoyed voice, Lillian shouted. And what made you think you'd be able to solve this mystery all of a sudden? I've never seen such an idiot, shouted back Chadwick. Oh, for crying out loud! Stop squabbling, you lovebirds, asked Skull. Chadwick and Lillian shouted in one voice that there was no relationship between them. Are you two going to keep pretending like this? I saw the vampire cover you with his body so you wouldn't fall. Isn't that unrequited love? How I like you two, exclaimed the skull. Hey, Skull, you want me to wipe you out? Shouted Chadwick and gripped the skull tightly in his hands. Chadwick saved me? Maybe he's actually a good vampire. Lillian thought to herself. Yeah, I saved you, so what? I did it because you're the only one I can use as a source of sustenance in an emergency. And if you've figured it out by now, then let's go. We still haven't found the key, said Chadwick. Exploring the room, Lillian realized that they were no longer in a barn, but in some kind of multi-story building. The girl became frightened. She began muttering words of comfort to herself. Hey, you're mumbling too loudly and it's interfering with my search. So stay here. I'll go look for the key myself. Chadwick suddenly exclaimed. But I shall be even more afraid alone than with you, mumbled the girl. Look, don't you want to put him in his place? He keeps telling you what to do and how to act. Maybe it's time to switch? Skull asked the girl. What are you talking about now? Asked Lillian to the skull. I can't just say it. In return, you have to promise me that you'll let me live in the same house with you. Because if the headmaster finds out I didn't stop you, he might start using me as a dummy head in his lab, replied the skull. But I don't live alone. If my parents see you, they're not likely to be happy. I don't think they'll take you with them on camping trips and various travels, Liliana admitted. Well, however, I don't have the most ordinary parents, so I think you can live with me for a while. So will you answer me what I should do regarding Chadwick? He went after the key, didn't he? Then we can use that to our advantage. With the key, you can keep him on a short leash. By the way, I know where to find the collar used to tame demons, replied the skull. Anyway, I know where the key is hidden. Let's find it first and get out of here. See that funny portrait? Poke your finger right in that man's eye. Lillian walked over to the portrait and pressed her finger on the eye of the man pictured. A rumbling sound was heard, and a secret door opened. Wow! Turns out there's a lot of interesting things to find in this castle. By the way, I think this castle was built by vampires. Who else could have built such a gloomy house? Lillian exclaimed. Entering the secret room, the girl saw a huge number of different boxes. See that box with the sticker on it? That's where the key should be. I saw the principal put it there myself, exclaimed the skull. Lillian hurriedly opened the box. Unfortunately, it was empty. Lillian began quickly going through the boxes in the room. Finally, in one of the boxes, the girl found a key. Along with the key in the box was a white Pomeranian Spitz. Lillian froze with mortification. "Wait, this is dangerous! Get away from it! It's an unusual animal!" Skull exclaimed. "It can't be. What could be dangerous to such a wonderful baby?" asked Lillian. Suddenly, the little puppy was simply enormous in size. Skull explained to the girl that it was not an ordinary Spitz, but a demon guarding this place. His name was Big Poke. The Spitz barked loudly. The sound was so loud that it stunned Lillian for a few seconds. The white, huge Spitz went in search of the intruders. He didn't notice where the girl had disappeared to. "Hey, Lillian, are you doing that on purpose?" grumbled Chadwick. "Are you out of your mind? Who would do something like that on purpose?" resented Lillian. "Whether it's on purpose or not, get your hands off me unless you want me to nail you right here in this coffin," Chadwick said in an angry voice. The girl answered him that she was already trying not to touch him, but there was too little room in this coffin. "I take it you were going to escape on your own. So why did you drag me down here? I'm sure I could have handled that demon with one punch," shouted Chadwick. "Sorry to distract you from such an entertaining dialogue, but right now, I'm probably going to ruin the air," said the skull and belched relishfully. Lillian and Chadwick jumped out of the coffin. "And what could only a rotting skull eat?" Lillian was indignant and covered her nose with her hand. "That Spitz has taken over the lobby. We need to get down from here undetected somehow," said Lillian. She began to look around for a suitable object. "Chadwick, look at that bulky chandelier. If you remember, movies and cartoons often show big chandeliers falling on someone from above. The chandelier idea is great, of course, but we don't have any tool we can use to cut the chain that holds the chandelier up," recalled Skull. "And why wouldn't we? We have one legendary tool that has the deadly power of a jaw. You don't have to worry, it won't take long." Chadwick grabbed the skull and ran toward the chandelier. With one jump, he jumped onto the chandelier. Spitz spotted Chadwick. He stood under the chandelier and started barking loudly. "So, show me your legendary skills." Chadwick held the skull up to the chain. "This chain is made of solid metal. I'm going to break all my teeth on it." The skull resented the chain, but gnawed on it anyway. After a few seconds, the chandelier broke off and flew downward with a whoosh. Although the chandelier fell directly on the Spitz, it only gave him a small bump. The Spitz began to run in circles around the building, knocking everything in its path. The castle began to walk around. "Throw me the skull, I'll catch it!" shouted Lillian. Chadwick threw the skull, but the Spitz jumped high and caught it with his teeth. "Help!" screamed the skull. "We must get away from here as soon as possible. We must leave this skull here. We shouldn't risk our lives for him," shouted Chadwick to the girl. "Whoever you are, I will always remember your sacrifice," shouted Lillian and hurried towards the exit. As soon as Chadwick and Lillian got outside, the barn shattered into small pieces. "I almost died of fright. I wish we had taken the key with us." Breathing heavily, Lillian said, "Wait, you mean you found the key? You wanted to collude with that skull and steal my key?" Chadwick asked the girl in an angry voice. "You see, here's the thing. I was the one ordered to do it by the skull. I was against it." Smiling innocently, Lillian muttered, "And what's that smell? Did you hurt yourself?" Chadwick asked, suddenly bouncing away from the girl. Lillian admitted to him that she had hurt herself a little as she ran out of the building. Since Chadwick had bitten the girl, he now couldn't help but think about the taste of her blood. The smell of Lillian's blood was starting to drive him crazy. "Ritual, divine judgment," exclaimed a man who approached. In his hand, he held a cross. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck Chadwick. Screaming violently, he fainted. "Don't worry, he just fainted briefly. About you. How would you feel about going to the headmaster right now and finding out what punishment awaits you?" the man asked. The man poured coffee and held it out to Lillian. "Thank you very much. First you helped me treat my wounds, and now you're also giving me coffee. By the way, what an unusual cup after all," noted Lillian. "You know, I never thought Chadwick would be able to socialize with someone as popular as you. They call you the Vampire Queen, don't they?" the man asked. rubbing his beard thoughtfully. "I've been taking care of Chadwick since he was a baby. He was always breaking things, setting fires, and running away from home. He was out of control, causing trouble everywhere he went. I had to put a demon collar on him once, but it only ended up making things worse. I have no choice but to punish you both. I think you should be suspended for a while. Chadwick will have to be transferred to another school." "What do you mean, transfer to another school? You do know that Paquan High School is the only one with vampires. All the other schools have humans," Lillian exclaimed in a surprised voice. The girl realized this was a chance to get into another school. "That will be all for now. We'll talk about it in more detail tomorrow," said the man and rose from his chair. Suddenly, Lillian fell on her knees in front of the man, which extremely surprised him. "Principal, I want to confess to you that this is all my fault." Lowering her eyes to the floor, said the girl. "I don't believe you. You had no reason to act this way," said the principal in a nonchalant tone. "I didn't want to tell you this, but I am Chadwick's irreplaceable friend. And as a friend, I have to share in his suffering, problems, and even death. Please transfer me along with Chadwick to another school." Lillian folded her hands prayerfully. How wretched that sounds. It's just unbearable. I can't hear those words, but I'm glad you're worried about others. Those are the kind of students our school needs. I've decided I'm going to make you president of the school board," exclaimed the principal, squeezing the girl's shoulders tightly. "What are you talking about? In order to become president, at the very least you have to be voted in by the students," exclaimed Lillian. The girl was shocked that her efforts had backfired on her. "Don't worry about that. How could they not want to elect the vampire queen herself as the school's president? And yes, I will change Chadwick's punishment. Starting tomorrow, he's volunteering. He'll help you with the presidential stuff," said the principal. "Of course, becoming the school president is a great honor. But there is one big disadvantage. The president has to be an example in the eyes of the students, and I'm not like that. I don't like to learn," objected the girl. "Really? That's too bad. It's just that I, as the former president of the Exorcist Society, could write a letter of recommendation for the university if you agreed." In a sad voice, the headmaster said, "I have acquaintances from different universities, and if you were to have such a letter, you know what I'm talking about now, don't you?" "Okay, I agree, deal," exclaimed the girl. Back home, Lillian fell exhaustedly on her bed. She was glad that her adventures were finally over. Lillian pulled out of her pocket the cross the headmaster had given her. He had asked that the girl carry the cross with her at all times. A maid came up to the girl and gently shook her by the shoulders. "Come on, you need to get ready," said the maid. Climbing up on the bed, Lillian stretched sweetly. "Miss, now that you are awake, then let me help you get ready. You need to wash your face, so please give me your hand," the maid asked. The girl held out her hand without hesitation. "I also need to collect the remaining blood from you." Suddenly, the maid turned into Chadwick. When Lillian opened her eyes, she realized that she had accidentally fallen off the bed onto the floor. The situation with the maid was only a dream. "Ugh, I hate to go to school. I can't even imagine what awaits me there after yesterday. I can't even tell anyone about it," thought Lillian on the way to school. "No one will believe that I talked to a skull, and afterwards I also ran away from a giant spitz that ended up destroying the whole castle. Also, they want to make me president of the school board at the vampire school. I had things happen yesterday that most adequate people don't get to do in a lifetime. Hopefully at least today will be a quiet day." Approaching the school, Lillian saw a large gathering of exorcists. Damn, it looks like the day is going to go to shit first thing in the morning. And why are they gathered here? If they spot me, they'll probably misunderstand me and burn me at the stake as a witch. I should avoid them by any means necessary. Lillian turned around to go the other way, but was immediately confronted by a student of the exorcist school. In his hands was a pink umbrella decorated with images of a cute rabbit. The girl remembered that she had seen this guy before. He was the son of her mom's friend. I apologize for disturbing you, but have you by any chance seen a vampire around here? Asked the guy. No, not at all. I've never seen any vampires at all. If you'll excuse me, I have to run, exclaimed Liliana and hurried away. So you're saying you've never seen vampires? And why do you have snow-white hair? Or did you mean you've never seen any but yourself? Mumbled the boy and clenched a long white hair in his fist. I managed to escape after all. So exorcists aren't as scary as I thought. I wonder how long that guy with the cute umbrella was standing behind my back. Lillian had to run to avoid being late for school. Suddenly, the girl heard a pitiful meow. A fat, tricolored cat was sitting on a tree branch. What a cutie! Wait, I'll save you now! The girl exclaimed and climbed the fence. After climbing the fence, Lillian gingerly reached for the cat. And what are you doing now? A male voice asked Lillian. The girl remembered that she had heard that voice not long ago. It was her mom's friend's son. Why aren't you answering me? I asked you. What are you doing now? The boy with the cute pink umbrella repeated his question. At the moment, I'm trying to save a cat, Lillian replied. You misunderstood my question. The guy pulled a gun out of his pocket. I meant, why are you hiding your true identity? Aren't you a vampire who is among humans? The guy pointed the gun at Lillian. Wait, this is some kind of misunderstanding. I'm actually 100% human. Please believe me. Lillian disarmed and put her hands up in the air. If that's true, then provide me with a human ID. With this ID, I will believe you, the guy said in a stern voice. Lillian rummaged through her backpack, but she found nothing besides her school ID. So it was all a lie, then. That's what I thought at first for some reason. You may look human, but you're ultimately a vampire. You're no different from wild beasts that are obsessed with flesh and blood, the boy exclaimed. Wait, you don't have to say that. Yes, vampires are very scary in the eyes of humans, and I agree that they love blood, but they have enough conscience and compassion to help a girl in trouble, said Lillian. With a loud meow, the cat began to slowly approach the girl. Suddenly, the branch underneath the cat snapped and it fell right on top of Lillian's head. The girl cried out loudly and fell down. As she fell, she accidentally hit the guy right in the nose. Blood splattered out. Apologizing, Lillian ran to the school. Lowering his eyes to the ground, Gareth saw the girl's school ID. I managed to get away from him after all. Breathing heavily, Lillian muttered. The girl felt her strength begin to leave her. Her knees were shaking from the long run and stress. I hope he didn't remember me. Something lately I've become kind of fearless. What's happening to me? Suddenly, Lillian heard the school children talking. They were resenting the fact that Eagle was supposed to visit them today. What they heard upset Lillian. She really didn't want to run into Eagle. Eagle was the name of a strict school teacher. Sometimes he would stand at the main entrance of the school and make sure that the students came in properly. He would punish any misbehavior, whether it was wearing a skirt that was too short or not wearing a jacket. The king heard the students whispering that the vampire queen had come to school. The long-awaited main character has finally arrived. All the students are just thrilled with her. My authority as a teacher has fallen because of her. I've never felt treated like this before. Eagle thought to himself, I'm going to show that girl who's really in charge of this school. The tie and jacket are fine, but the skirt should be a maximum of 10 centimeters above the knee. Let's see if she's in compliance with the school's norms. Eagle pulled out his favorite long ruler from behind his back. The skirt appeared to be 10 centimeters above the knee. The girl was in compliance with all school norms. So can I pass? Asked Lillian. No. Your skirt turned out to be 10 centimeters and 1 millimeter above the knee. You must turn into a bat right now. You will walk 50 steps like that. That will be your punishment for today. Smiling happily, Eagle said, That's a pretty severe punishment, to turn into a mouse and walk 50 steps. The students whispered amongst themselves. Lillian was in a state of shock. She didn't know what to do in such a situation. She couldn't turn into a bat. I apologize, but she will fulfill this punishment a little later. We're a bit busy right now as we'll be preparing for the president's business. Chadwick walked over to Lillian and put his arm around her shoulders. Here, look. She has a special presidential badge on the lapel of her jacket. It's a school board badge. Exempts you from being penalized for tardiness and inappropriate appearance. Lillian looked at the lapel of her jacket. He was indeed wearing a badge that wasn't there a second ago. How humiliating! But I won't back down that easily, Eagle thought irritably. And where did you go? I'm not done with my uniform check, am I? Eagle said in a loud voice. Didn't you see the badge on her jacket? Reminded Chadwick. You're talking about a girl now. The thing is, you, Blondie, I can't let go. After all, you've managed to distinguish yourself with your behavior since middle school, Eagle remarked. Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes in middle school, so what? Do you want to punish me for that? Asked Chadwick. Rule number 18, it is forbidden to wear a tie under your school uniform. Rule number 24, prohibits any body piercing. Also, ignorant behavior towards a teacher is now present, shouted Eagle. You must now turn into a bat and take 100 steps. Eagle ripped Chadwick's turtleneck with a ruler. He immediately saw the collar around the boy's neck. The man knew it wasn't a simple collar. It was meant to contain the vampire's power. A whisper was heard among the students again. They were surprised to see Chadwick wearing a collar. Fortunately, they figured it was just something like a choker. Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you, Eagle exclaimed. You're absolutely not embarrassing me, said Chadwick, flashing his eyes angrily. He hurriedly covered his collar. Lillian took off your jacket and covered Chadwick's naked torso with it. Master, since Chadwick's clothes are torn, I'll take him to the infirmary. Maybe there will be some of his belongings there. Since I'm the president of the school board, I'll be sure to discuss this situation with the principal, the girl promised. How ashamed I am of this situation after all. I wanted to fix it, but I ended up putting on a whole show. Now everyone will think Chadwick is my responsibility. Lillian thought with despair. We looked like an odd couple. What will the school children think of us now? It's embarrassing, Lillian shouted, grabbing her head. What are you ashamed of? I'm the one who embarrassed myself in front of the whole school, grumbled Chadwick. It's so great that these things fit you. By the way, they cover the collar perfectly, exclaimed Lillian, taking her eyes aside. Are you kidding me? And in what place do these clothes cover my collar? Anyway, I really hope you and I work out. I'm a member of the student council now, too. Chadwick shook the girl's hand firmly. How great it is that you two have managed to find common ground. I want to remind you that the school council takes full responsibility for the students, discusses various important issues, and carries out certain tasks. A male voice was heard. Chadwick and Lillian guessed that the voice was coming from one of the coffins that were in the infirmary. I'm glad the student council members are getting along well with each other after all. This will help you in your future endeavors. Suddenly, the lid of the coffin moved away, and someone's hand appeared from it. When Lillian saw the hand, she shrieked. Chadwick walked over to the coffin and pounded on it with his fist. What do you enjoy looking at, you old pervert? How could you sneak up and spy on us? Chadwick pushed down on the lid of the coffin, preventing the headmaster from getting out of it. This is a misunderstanding. I wasn't sneaking around, it's just that I hurt myself recently and decided to lie here. I was dismantling the debris of the warehouse yesterday, so I hurt my arm, explained the headmaster. Now that you, Lillian, have received your badge, I'll tell you about your duties on the school board. I've even prepared a poster. The school principal unfolded a large pink poster. It said in large letters, "The school board center will solve any problems you have." Are you making fun of us? Why did you make this poster? Isn't the school board supposed to do all sorts of announcements and events? Chadwick wondered. We decided to change the function of the school board a little bit. Yes, 2 years ago we had a school board called the School Aristocracy. It was originally the most normal circle, but after the change of head it got weird drastically, replied the headmaster. Suddenly, one by one, the students began to get caught up in scandals. which were then printed in the school newspaper. There were scandals about the commoners, their appearance, and their attitude toward money. And there was also a rumor that the school board president was dating a man. In the end, it was decided to dissolve the school board. Since then, the school board president, having been morally traumatized, still walks around the school in the guise of a bat. So I decided to put this poster on the bulletin board to let everyone know about the new school board. Suddenly, the school principal received a phone call from someone. "What did you just say? Did you find the school president who turned into a bat? I'm running to you right now!" shouted the school principal and jumped out of the infirmary. "We can't let him hang that scary poster on the bulletin board," mumbled Chadwick. Lillian was in agreement with him. "I was passing by and happened to overhear your conversation. Would you mind listening to my worries?" A pretty pink-haired girl entered the office. "This girl looks like the heroine of some romantic TV show, and for some reason I feel like I've seen her somewhere before," Lillian thought to herself. The pink-haired girl sat down on a chair and introduced herself. Her name was Tiffany Shin. "I'm a little embarrassed to say this about myself, but I'm popular with the men. I was recently approached by a rugged man who confessed his liking for me," told Tiffany. "What's the problem with that? You can answer him that you don't like him. You don't have to socialize with him," said Chadwick. "That's what I thought too, but recently I found a letter in my mailbox. That man wrote me a letter saying he thought I was a goddess of destiny. He also promised to meet me in the park near the school. By the way, this letter is written in blood." The girl showed the envelope. Lillian took the letter and read it carefully. "I would like to point out that such letters are popular among vampires. They say that with the help of blood, you can show your true feelings. I really want to refuse this man, but I'm afraid I can't do it myself." Tiffany went on to say, "Don't worry, we will definitely solve your problem," hotly exclaimed Lillian. After class, Lillian and Chadwick went to the park. Chadwick reacted aggressively to those people who happened to look at him. Lillian was ashamed of his behavior. "Hey, Lillian, do you really want to help her? Didn't she seem kind of weird to you? I can easily figure out bad people because I'm the same way. Somehow, I think this girl has bad intentions." Chadwick shared his fears. "What are you, a detective? What makes you think this innocent girl has any bad intentions? Maybe you're interested in her because she's a hottie?" Lillian asked with a smirk. Lillian noticed a lone figure standing alone. It was Tiffany. "Look at that pretty face! She can't even hurt a fly!" Lillian exclaimed. "That suspicious man has been sitting in the park for some time now." Tiffany pointed to the lonely man sitting alone. The man's head was hidden by a hood, so it was impossible to see his face. "He seems to be from high school, so I think I can handle him alone. I'll go deal with him. You guys wait for me here," said Lillian. The girl was confident in her abilities. "Were you the one who wrote the love letter to Tiffany? Let's talk to you," said Lillian, walking up to the hooded man. The man got up from the bench and loomed over Lillian. He was simply huge. "That's crazy! He's over 2 meters tall. Is he definitely a vampire?" Chadwick wondered. "We need to call someone for help right away," said Chadwick. He was about to leave, but Tiffany stopped him. The girl said she was scared, so she asked Chadwick to stay with her. "Stop shivering. I'm not Lillian to you. I have an overly sensitive nose. I'm good at sensing malice. You came to us because you had an ulterior motive, right?" Chadwick asked. "I don't know what you're up to, but it's not going to work because I'm not just going to give up." "I'm sorry, I was actually lying to you." Tiffany hugged Chadwick tightly. "Actually, I've liked you for a long time. I couldn't work up the courage to tell you that because you have Lillian around you all the time, so I decided to separate you two." "Give me a break. What are you picking on me for? No one confesses their feelings to a person with that look on their face. I get in a bad mood when I get hugged by ugly women like you." Chadwick pushed the girl away from him. "Don't you dare say those words to me, you lowlife," Tiffany shouted. "What's the matter? Have you decided to recant yet?" "Unfortunately, I'm very picky when it comes to tastes." Smiling wryly, Chadwick said. Tiffany clapped her hands 3 times. Several men in black suits stepped out of a nearby car. They approached Chadwick with a confident stride. "What are you up to?" asked Chadwick. "I just thought I'd invite you to my house for a while," replied Tiffany. "So what am I supposed to do now?" Frightened, Lillian thought to herself. She hadn't expected to run into a big guy like that. "And I do know you. It's so good to see you again," the big guy exclaimed and spun Lillian around in a dance. "Wait, how do you know me?" asked the girl. She couldn't get a good look at the big man's face. "Oh, come on, it's me, that handsome skull, and this, the horrible spirit who likes to take the form of a harmless Spitz." Verzila threw off his hood. Under the hood, there was indeed a skull and a Spitz. "Didn't you get pummeled in that building? How did you even get here?" Lillian wondered. Skull told her that the building had indeed collapsed, but the Spitz had helped him out. "We had an extremely amazing situation happen to us in general. Big Paw helped me get here. Since I'm in skull form, I needed some clothes so I wouldn't stand out. We picked up these things from the guys who were playing tennis." Then they chased us around for a long time, waving their rackets in all directions. And then we found a big box for us and rested in it for a while. A girl with pink hair came up to us and offered us a little money. The pink-haired girl suggested that we meet a man. We had no idea that this person would turn out to be you, the one who dumped me without a second thought. But I don't hold any grudge against you. I forgave you long ago. By the way, I saw out of the corner of my eye that your boyfriend was just taken away by some people. Doesn't that bother you?" "Why are you only telling me this now? Couldn't you have told me a little earlier?" Lillian exclaimed. She realized that Chadwick had probably been kidnapped. Lillian reached into her backpack for her cell phone. She had to call the police right away. Suddenly, the cross the headmaster had given her fell into her hands. "And I know what it is. It's a necklace that Chadwick used to wear. With the help of this cross, we can find him," said the skull. He took the necklace with the cross from the girl's hands. The skull put the cross in his teeth and began to scan the area. When Chadwick opened his eyes, he realized he was in a room unknown to him. His hands and feet were bound tightly. "What have you done to me? Untie me quickly!" shouted Chadwick. "You're awake at last. When you're tied up, you look really pathetic." A smiling Tiffany entered the room. "I want to confess to you that I originally wanted to seduce you, then separate the two of you and get rid of the school board. But now, after what happened, I'm going to have to join it myself." "Now here's where I really don't understand. What's in it for you to separate me from Lillian?" Chadwick asked the girl. "You really don't seem to understand my true motives. I wouldn't do such a reckless thing purely for some man. I'm doing all of this for the Vampire Queen," Tiffany replied. The girl walked over to the curtained painting and pulled the sheet off of it. The painting depicted the Vampire Queen Lillian. "Psycho, what is this? What are you freaking out about?" In a surprised voice, Chadwick shouted. "Well, isn't she beautiful? This canvas was handmade by an Italian master. I commissioned this large-scale portrait from a famous artist." Tiffany pressed her cheek to the portrait. "The first time I met Mrs. Lillian Berge, I was convinced she was majestic because she didn't care about rumors. A noble aura emanated from her like a pureblood. It all took my breath away. I was willing to sacrifice anything for her. But suddenly, you showed up and ruined everything. Because of you, Madame Lillian's authority has been undermined. So, you plan to get closer to her and remove me from her entourage? Well, that's ridiculous. And why do I even have to listen to all this nonsense?" Chadwick exclaimed. "I was going to bring you back safely if you would just listen to me calmly. Now know this, you dug your own grave for yourself." Tiffany clapped her hands 3 times again. Men in black suits entered the room. Ahead of them, they were pushing carts that held plates covered with lamb. "You're a lady from a noble family, not some gangster. And do you really think you're going to get away with this?" said Chadwick to the girl. "Geez, what are you imagining up there? I'm not going to use brutal ways on you. You said yourself once upon a time that you have a sensitive nose. That's why I've prepared the best scents for you," said Tiffany, and put on a respirator. "Well, let's start with the stinky tofu," exclaimed the girl excitedly. Getting out of the cab, Lillian saw a huge house. "Are you sure Chadwick is being held hostage in a place like this?" asked the girl to the skull. He replied that there could be no mistake. "Look at this. There are guards stationed at the main gate. These people are very rich indeed," exclaimed Lillian. "We have nothing to fear because this unique white Spitz is now on our side," calmed the girl's skull. The Spitz took on the appearance of a white ball of fluff and rolled up to the leg of one of the guards. He then took on the appearance of a harmless little dog and began barking softly, urging the guards to pet him. "Look at that! What a cute animal!" pleased the guards. Suddenly, the cute dog turned into a huge, vicious dog. A moment later, the guards were lying on the ground unconscious. Lillian and Big Pome changed into the guards' clothes. "You seem to be at your limit, so give up! Stop playing the hero! I've already tried a bunch of all sorts of flavored products on you. I can tell you're already sick of the smells," said Tiffany to Chadwick. "Well, since that didn't work, I'm left with my latest weapon. It's been passed down in our family for generations. It's the pickled heart of the last King Louis. It smells really good. We secretly took the heart of an executed man, pickled it, and stored it for several centuries. You'll find it hard to resist something like that." A guard burst into the room and announced in a loud voice that their estate was under attack. Tiffany ordered a search of the mansion. "Hey, you newbies. Didn't you hear that the mistress ordered us to search for the people who invaded the mansion? You guys better not act like this. In my day, you had to move fast as a machine when ordered to do something." An enraged guard walked up to Lillian. "Hey, you big guy. That goes for you, too. When an elder approaches, you should bow, not stand like a stump," said the guard to the overdressed Spitz. The skull in Spitz's hands only blinked in surprise. He didn't expect the guards in this house to be so stupid. "Listen, why do you look so strange? Is there really a costume party going on tonight? Your face really does look like a dog's," the guard exclaimed. "You did a good job with the wolf cosplay, but the skull looks cheap." "Look, let's not get distracted by unnecessary talk. You better tell me what you're carrying in that car," asked Lillian to the guard. He told her he was carrying medicine for their blonde bully guest. "Look, why don't we run this errand for you?" the girl asked. "Okay, I'll let you drive this cart, but in return you'll sell me a skull. My niece loves such marvelous things. I can give you 3,000 for it," said the guard and jabbed his finger at the skull. "You mean to tell me I'm worth a measly 3,000? You think I can be bought for such a pittance?" screamed the skull and clamped his teeth into the guard's hands. "Quickly let him go! What are you doing?" screamed Lillian and pulled the skull towards herself. Suddenly, the sleeve ripped off with a crack and the girl fell on her back. "What was that? Why was the skull talking?" the guard muttered in an amazed voice. Lillian clutched the skull tightly to her and scurried away. "We need to find Chadwick as soon as possible and get out of here. I'm worried he might be tortured," shouted Lillian. Behind her, Lillian could hear the indignant voices of the guards. Suddenly, Big Pome stopped and blocked the guard's path. Big Pome took the form of a huge Spitz, thus filling almost the entire hallway. "Big Pome, I will never forget your sacrifice," shouted Lillian and ran even faster. A strong, stinky odor was coming from one of the rooms of the manor. "I came to save you," shouted Lillian, opening the door of the stinky room. In the middle of the room stood Chadwick. Around him on the floor lay the guards. They were unconscious. Chadwick looked at Lillian. His eyes flashed with an unkind light. "What's wrong with his eyes? He's clearly not in his right mind," Lillian exclaimed. "Hey, asshole, come back to us. You're not going to keep acting like a mindless vampire, are you? You hear me? If I had a body, I'd rip a vampire like you to shreds," screamed the skull. Chadwick ran up to the skull and punched it in the temple with his fist. The skull only gasped in surprise. "How are you acting?" frightenedly exclaimed Lillian. Her legs went numb with fear. The girl realized that now, in front of her was not that carefree Chadwick, but the real monster. Even though they were friends, there was no telling what he would do to her. "Lillian, before I hurt you, you better run away!" Chadwick hissed through his teeth. "Heaven's punishment!" shouted the skull, clutching the cross in its teeth. In the same second, Chadwick was struck by lightning. He fell unconsciously to the floor. "While Big Pome has our backs, we need to grab this kid and get out of here," Skull said to the girl. Lillian picked Chadwick up and pulled him towards the exit. The boy mumbled words of apology. "No, you're not going anywhere. You can't take that man away." Hearing Lillian behind her, turning around, she saw Tiffany. "If you disobey, I will shoot myself in the head with this water pistol. It has garlic extract inside of it," shouted Tiffany. "Why would you bring something like that to this? And why do you need Chadwick? It's not like you don't know him at all," exclaimed Lillian. "I don't give a damn about him. I'm doing this to preserve your honor," Tiffany replied. Lillian countered her that they didn't even know each other. What honor are we talking about? "As expected, you don't even remember our first meeting. You saved me from one unpleasant situation once." Tiffany began to recount. "At school, I was being harassed by a student from a parallel class. He persistently asked me to date him, but I was against it. That's when you intervened, protecting me from his persistence. After that incident, that persistent student got away from me. I was lucky he started spreading nasty rumors about me, as he was probably afraid of you. That day, I was fascinated by your charisma, so I decided that I would do anything for you. I secretly got rid of the guys who said nasty things behind your back. I made sure your reputation wasn't tarnished. I remembered you. Just a little while ago, you were offering me your blood bag," Lillian exclaimed. "True. I didn't dare get close to you, so I was quite content to watch from afar. I don't fully understand why you're having such a good time with Chadwick instead of me," Tiffany asked. Tears streamed down the girl's cheeks. "God, why is she crying and with that thing in her hand?" marveled Skull. "Her method isn't right at all, but I understand perfectly well why she does it. A friend of mine I was friends with in middle school also drifted away from me when she started dating a guy with a terrible temper." Lillian thought to herself. "I tried my best to be there for her because I wanted things to go back to the way they were. I learned my lesson. Attachment is never 100% mutual. That's why I know all too well the sadness when your feelings aren't understood or accepted by others." Lillian placed Chadwick on the floor and took a few steps toward Tiffany. "Tiffany, what you did was wrong, despite your pure intentions. You'll need to apologize to Chadwick later for the harm you caused him. If, after you sincerely apologize, you still want to get close to me, you can frankly confess to me your desire to be friends. That's how friends usually become friends." Lillian took the gun from Tiffany and tossed it to the floor. "Oh, we could barely get out of there. It's still good that Tiffany listened to you," said the Skull on the way home. Lillian was amazed at Chadwick's behavior. First of all, he didn't deny the rumor that he was human. Chadwick left it at that. Second, in the midst of his madness, he was still worried about the girl. Lillian decided he wasn't such a bad guy. The next day, Tiffany and Chadwick didn't want to make up. They called each other the very last words. "Tiffany, you promised me you would apologize to Chadwick. If you don't apologize to him, then I will have no choice but to deny you my friendship," said Lillian to the girl. "Oh, okay, I'll be lenient this time," said Chadwick. He forgave Tiffany for her gaffe. "Yay, now I can be around you, right? It's like I fell into an amazing dream. I am now the Vampire Queen's best friend." Tiffany exclaimed happily and snuggled up to Lillian. "By the way, I contacted the headmaster last night and expressed my desire to become part of the school board. He was so excited about the news that he handed me permission to join with a smile. This will be the first time I will be involved in resolving student issues. Last night, I even managed to make an app where students can get counseling and talk about their difficulties. On that app, you can select your desired school board member and request their help by starting a conversation. Tiffany, won't this affect your reputation?" After all, you're an aristocrat and you're doing such a minor job, said Chadwick. What, are you afraid I'll take your place? Asked Tiffany. The atmosphere began to heat up again. Lillian again had to intervene in the conflict. Lillian, about yesterday. I hope you didn't get hurt and I didn't have time to bite you. The problem is that I wasn't in my right mind yesterday, so I don't remember much, said Chadwick to Lillian. I get the feeling that you're a cat that has always avoided its master and now has started petting him. To be honest, you looked scary yesterday, Lillian admitted. You had a look like the vampires they show in movies or on TV shows. It was scary as hell. But coming home, I realized I wasn't scared of you at all. I was more worried that you might not have come back to school. I know you're not such a bad guy. I guess that's probably why you and I have gotten a little closer. You look really ridiculous right now. Let's exchange phone numbers with you just in case. Chadwick hit Lillian over the head with his cell phone. You could have just asked me for it. Why hit me over the head? The girl exclaimed. I hit you over the head to shut you up. You were talking some heresy. Okay, I'll see you around. I have to go see the principal, said Chadwick and walked out of the classroom. Long time no see, Madam President, Gareth exclaimed loudly as he entered the office of the president of the Exorcist Association. Wow, what people have come to see us! Why, it's our illustrious son. During your business trip, I heard that you graduated early from the highest level internship. Now you can get a baptized name and become blameless, said the president. Thank you for your warm words, but it's too early for me to receive the baptized name. I didn't come to you empty-handed. Please, please, please take a look at this. Gareth held out Lillian's school ID card to the president. This ID belongs to a vampire girl who recently invaded the human zone, reported Gareth. I see you remember the report we received recently, but it said there were no human casualties so far. Maybe this vampire just escaped from his zone? Why does that bother you? Asked the president. But after all, this vampire was near the scene of the incident. What if she had something to do with it? For the safety of the citizens, we need to investigate this case deeper, replied Gareth. It seems our son has his sights set on this girl. I was just itching to get you a job when I arrived. How fortunate that worked out, the president said thoughtfully. Bona, could you get the list of exchange students from Pequin High School? Asked the president to her subordinate. The girl promised to do her best. Lillian ran into the school's lab technician in the hallway. The girl asked her to take the samples to the lab. For that, I'll give you this funny sticker as a commendation. The lab assistant put a sticker in the shape of a rabbit on Lillian's cheek. The same bunnies were on the pink umbrella of an exorcist she had recently met. The lab assistant explained to Lillian that stickers in the shape of such rabbits had been extremely popular some time ago. And it's true that the scent of wild beasts remains here as before. As expected, the training courses from me proved to be useless, said the president of the Exorcist Association as she entered the vampire school. Lillian set the samples on the table and wanted to leave, but was confronted in the doorway by an exorcist she knew. I was able to find you thanks to your school ID that you recently lost. I also found out that at this school they call you Queen, said Gareth to the girl. I guess you won't be telling me you are a human anymore. A human can't attend a vampire school. Since you have nowhere to hide right now, I'll take my interrogations slow. Wait, I think you misunderstood me. There's been some kind of mistake here. A frightened girl flew by. Lillian wanted to run away, but Gareth prevented her from doing so. Stumbling, the girl fell to the floor, pulling the samples with her. Some of them spilled onto Gareth. What kind of prank is this? Asked Gareth, pinning Lillian to the floor. Wait, your eyes. Are you really a half-breed? The girl asked, surprised. Lillian, are you all right? You were being chased by some exorcist, and I walked in here, said Chadwick, entering the room. But seeing Lillian and the exorcist lying on the floor, he hesitated half a word. What's going on here? Asked Chadwick, walking over to Lillian. He grabbed Gareth by the scruff of his neck and lifted him high off the floor. Who the hell are you? Asked Chadwick in an enraged voice. Let him go quickly. He's done nothing wrong to me. Those red stains on the floor are lab samples. That's not blood, screamed Lillian. Lillian, couldn't you have told me that before? Asked Chadwick to the girl. He let go of the exorcist. What are you doing here? You just attacked an exorcist who was doing his duty. Are you out of your mind? Asked Gareth to Chadwick. So what of it? You think I should be afraid of you because of that? You were the first one to make use of a student from a foreign school. Shouldn't you be punished? Chadwick asked. I was only doing my job. I'm going to have to arrest you for obstructing it, exclaimed Gareth. Is that so? That's quite expected, though, and I was just about to compete with an exorcist, said Chadwick. Then I have nothing left but to shoot you, said Gareth and pointed his gun at Chadwick. With one punch, Chadwick knocked the gun out of Gareth's hands. The problem with humans is that they are too dependent on guns. You're like an open book to me. But one thing is strange to me. How on earth did you manage to become an exorcist while being a vampire? Chadwick asked Gareth. I'm not a vampire, said Gareth and flashed his bright red eyes. Gareth grabbed his baton from behind his back and hit Chadwick with it. Hey, isn't it forbidden to charge a baton with divine power? Chadwick was indignant. Stop it, and you, Chadwick, quickly apologize to him, shouted the girl loudly. Lillian, are you really siding with this exorcist? Chadwick wondered. The girl explained to him that the students of the school had fled to the fight. They shouldn't have seen it. I don't know why you're so obsessed with Lillian, but she belongs to my school. I will defend her to the last, so kindly get off her back, said Chadwick to Gareth. I was so diligent to get permission to meet her, so I won't leave here empty-handed, and I will certainly take her away from here and make her a suspect in a case, replied Gareth. Chadwick wanted to lunge at Gareth, but someone's black, long whip wrapped around his waist and dropped him to the floor. I kept waiting for you, and you never came. I wondered what you were doing here. Turns out you have no way of dealing with some ill-mannered scum, said the president of the Exorcist Association, who entered. I'm sorry, Madam President, said Gareth, bowing his head low. A girl exorcist walked up to Chadwick and tied him up tightly. The president of the Exorcist Association announced that she would take care of Chadwick's upbringing. Wait. He was just trying to save me. Therefore, could you please forgive him for such impertinence this time? Asked Lillian to the president. I didn't expect you to stand up for a vampire. Well, I have just the thing to talk to you. If you will obediently follow me, I will fulfill your request, said the president. Lillian agreed to all her terms. Director, your coffee is quite good, but your cups are terrible. When are you going to change them after all? Asked the president. President, didn't I ask you to notify me if you wanted to visit us? And didn't I ask time after time to stop suspending me as punishment? The principal asked the woman. I'm not actually here to see you. I'm here to see your student. And on top of that, I like it when you look like a cute caterpillar, replied the president. Lillian, I came here to apologize to you for one thing. I know that you are actually human. We, the Exorcist Association, should have prevented you from entering vampire school in the first place. Your transfer was insisted upon by the headmaster of the vampire school. He is the one you can blame for what happened. He wanted to use you for his own purposes. You can ask him about all that a little later, but right now, I want to offer you something. How about transferring to a school run by me? I just happen to have an application for admission to the School for Exorcists in hand. It's a prestigious school where you can immediately get a job as an exorcist after graduation. You're free to choose, so think carefully about my offer. The president of the Exorcist Association gave Lillian an application for admission to the exorcist school and headed for the door. By the way, if you want to stay in this school, please take care of my son. He's very afraid of people. Turning around, the president asked. Lillian was surprised by this request, but the girl decided not to dwell on it. Lillian, you may think my words are an excuse, but could you listen to my request and reconsider everything? Asked the headmaster to the girl. When I first plunged headfirst into my work as an exorcist, things were very grim with the vampires. They were subjected to surveillance by us for the purpose of correction. They were silenced. We did not interfere with the students' education. I thought it was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. After meeting with the president, I dedicated myself to pedagogy, resigned as an exorcist, and became the principal of this school. My main goal is to show those around me that vampires can get along with humans. I want to rescue this school from the clutches of the exorcists. I believe you are the one who can help me do that. By the way, being an exorcist isn't such a serene job. You'll have to work overtime, constantly adjust to your elders, and endure the ridicule of your coworkers. By the way, the salary isn't that great. Besides, becoming an exorcist will require you to fight vampires at the cost of your own life. I really hope you can adapt to this school and help me with the school board. Okay, deal. I'll stay at the school. Sighing heavily, said Lillian. The girl still had to untie the principal, though. Now he wasn't hanging upside down, but standing beside her with his hands prayerfully folded. But in return, I will only attend this school for 1 year. And if my identity is revealed, you will be obliged to transfer me to another school immediately. Of course. I promise to support you both spiritually and financially. By the way, I forgot to tell you, but there might be an exchange student coming to your class as early as tomorrow. The president told me that she wants to send a student from the exorcist school here, warned the principal. The next day, the teacher announced that a student from the exorcist school had been transferred to their class. It's a pleasure to meet you. I will be in this class for a year. My name is Gareth Swan. You'll probably be uncomfortable and scared around me, but don't be alarmed. I'm only targeting one person. Gareth looked at Lillian carefully. At recess, all anyone was talking about was the fact that 2 students from the school at once were fighting over the vampire queen's heart, bully Chadwick and newcomer Gareth. Many students had seen them fighting in the lab. Lillian was embarrassed to be put in such a bad situation. Yesterday when you left, your buddy Chadwick made a fuss, which is why he's writing an explanatory letter right now. Now that the disturbance has cleared itself, let me make sure you're a safe vampire, said Gareth, walking up. Gareth never took a step away from Lillian. He even went to the restroom and library with her. Look at that! The new guy can't take his eyes off our queen. It's unprecedented for an exorcist to harbor feelings for a vampire. It's so much like a romantic drama. The students of the school marveled. One day, unable to stand it, Lillian pinned Gareth against the wall and asked him to stop stalking her. Do you know how hard this is for me right now? Rumors have been spreading around the school, making me a femme fatale to the students of the school, Lillian exclaimed. And I don't want the students to pay undue attention to me. What I want is for them not to notice me at all. How can't you understand that? I told you I am an ordinary person, and I try my best to hide it. Are you going to keep on pretending to be human? But I know what you really are. Judging by the fact that that brat Chadwick is your subordinate, it's hard to call you a regular vampire, Gareth pointed out. But he's not my subordinate. We're just buddies, objected the girl. If he's not your subordinate, then why does he walk around you like he's glued to you? He often calls himself a human or babbles some nonsense. By the way, I'm pretty sure a human can't befriend a vampire, said Gareth. Do you know why a vampire can't be friends with a human? It's simple. He sees man as his food. A predator can't be friends with its prey. It's unnatural. And you're the same way. All vampires, including you, are addicted to the taste of blood. You are constantly drawn to taste human blood. You are unbridled animals, living and dying for one thing, the taste of blood. Then try explaining such a thing. Would an animal obsessed with nothing but blood smile and frolic with a human like that? Lillian showed Gareth a picture on her phone. It showed her, Tiffany, and Chadwick. These vampires are worried about me not getting hurt and wish me happiness. Then who are they to me if not my friends? You're half vampire, too. You should know that vampires come in many forms. Explain to me how you know I'm a half-blood, Gareth asked Lillian, gripping her hand tightly. You have red eyes like a vampire, but black hair like a human, replied Lillian. The average human doesn't know about vampires and half-bloods. Where did you get that information from? Gareth continued to insist. Enraged, Lillian smacked Gareth's head on his nose. How dare you talk to a girl like that? Who taught you that kind of behavior?" Lillian was indignant. "You broke my nose again," grumbled Gareth. Terrified of the consequences, Lillian hurried out of the gym storeroom. Jiggling the gym storeroom handle, the girl realized that the door was locked with a key. Everything was happening like a stupid romantic comedy. They were accidentally locked together in the same room. Lillian pulled out her cell phone. It wasn't responding to her touch. The battery was completely dead. "I noticed that your blood doesn't stop. You got hurt because of me, so take my Olympics," said Lillian to Gareth. "Judging by the fact that you realize your guilt, I assume you have a conscience," grumbled Gareth. "Yes, I'm the one to blame for what happened. I'm terribly sorry you had to put up with my antics again," exclaimed Lillian. She asked Gareth where his cell phone was. It turned out that Gareth had given it to his teacher before class started. "The first thing we need to do is find the thing I was sent here for. When we get out of here, we'll go straight to the infirmary. You'll be patched up quickly there," said Lillian to Gareth. "I was sent to the gym storeroom to find a lost key. I was told it was lost during cleaning and no one can find it." Lillian began to look under benches and ball containers. "That's a lie. If the key is inside this room, they couldn't have locked the door from the outside. You opened the door before with no problem. There was no breakage. So it can only be locked with a key. Someone's playing a joke on you," Gareth remarked. "By the way, you don't have to worry about me. I'm not going to arrest you at the moment. You've turned out to be a naive fool, contrary to my expectations, so you don't seem dangerous. What about you? I mean, you're an exorcist who's totally unsuited to a pink umbrella with stupid bunnies. You wouldn't happen to be wandering around with it because it's connected to some story, would you?" asked Lillian. She really didn't like Gareth calling her stupid. "It's not that it's a mystery. It's just that my skin is sensitive, so I carry an umbrella to avoid the sun's rays. This umbrella, years ago, was given to me by a kid I was good friends with. Sadly, he has disappeared from my life," narrated Gareth. "I promised myself that when I met this kid again, I would make sure to give him the umbrella and never let him go away from me again. Seems that nutcase hates the kid even more than he hates me. I don't know who the owner of that umbrella is, but I think he needs to run as far away from Gareth as possible. He's clearly got a problem with his head," Lillian thought to herself. Suddenly, Lillian felt a painful prick in her stomach. The pain made the girl fold in half. "What's wrong? You don't look well." Gareth jumped up from his seat fearfully. The girl wouldn't admit to him that she had been wanting to go to the bathroom badly for several minutes now. Gareth picked up his umbrella and tried to break the lock with it. "What are you doing? Isn't this thing valuable to you?" Lillian wondered. "It's only an umbrella, and it can be repaired anyway. Right now, your fortune is far more important than his," replied Gareth. A short while later, the door opened with a quiet creak. Looking at the girl, Gareth realized that she would not be able to walk on her own. She would have to be carried in his arms. Lillian was very pale and trembling all over her body. "Yes, I locked Lillian in the storeroom with that exorcist. He's probably wiped her out by now," said the man in the black suit of a vampire school student into the phone receiver. "What an asshole. He did manage to get out after all." The man in the black suit was outraged when he saw the pantry door slowly open. "Ah, wait though. Something strange is going on. This turned out even better than I thought it would. Lillian is now passed out. Gareth is carrying her in his arms," the man in the black suit said with a cheerful grin. He decided to go ahead with his plan.